I have never used Reddit before. My granddaughter set up this account for me 8 months ago because she thought I would enjoy reading about gardening, and I have used it exactly twice for that purpose, and now I am using it for this. I am not a person who shares things on the internet. I am not a person who shares things anywhere, which is relevant to what I am about to tell you. Because the thing I am about to tell you is something I have not shared with a single living person in 53 years, and I am sharing it now because I am frightened in a way I have not been frightened since I was 19 years old, and I do not know what else to do at 11:30 at night with the lights off and the curtains drawn, and something that might be a shadow standing very still at the edge of my front yard. My name is not important. I am 71 years old. I live alone in a small house in a quiet neighborhood in a city in Northern California that I have lived in for 34 years. I have 2 adult children and 4 grandchildren, and a garden I am proud of, and a life that is ordinary in all the ways that matter, and that I have worked very hard to keep ordinary for 53 years specifically because of what I am about to tell you. I need you to understand that I am not a dramatic person. I am not a person who catastrophizes or invents threats or sees patterns in randomness. I am a retired school teacher. I taught 4th grade for 29 years. I am telling you this so you understand the baseline of who is writing this and why the thing I am about to describe is not the product of an elderly woman frightening herself in the dark. Something is outside my house tonight, and it has been building toward tonight for 3 months, and it started 53 years ago in a parking lot above a lake, and I should have told someone then, and I did not, and I am telling someone now. In the summer of 1968, I was 19 years old and living in the Bay Area with 2 roommates in an apartment that cost us $45 a month between 3 people, which tells you something about how long ago that was. I had a boyfriend named T. I am not going to use full names. Not his, not mine, not anyone's, for reasons that will become clear. And on the night I am describing, we had driven up to a lake outside the city the way young people did on summer nights, to park and talk and be 19 in the particular way you can only be 19 in summer when you are not yet old enough to know what summers end. We were parked at the far end of a lot that sat above the lake. There were 2 other cars in the lot when we arrived, both dark, both the same story as us. The night was clear. I remember the stars because I was looking at them through the windshield and thinking that this was the kind of night you tried to hold on to and couldn't. T had the radio on low. We had been there maybe an hour. I noticed the man because of the way he was walking. He was coming from the direction of the other cars, from the far end of the lot, moving toward the road, unhurried, hands at his sides. This is not unusual in a parking lot. People walk through parking lots. What was unusual was the quality of the walking, something I have spent 53 years trying to articulate and have never fully managed. He was walking the way a person walks when they are very deliberately performing the act of walking calmly. There is a difference between a person who is calm and a person who is working to appear calm, and at 19 years old I did not yet have the vocabulary for that difference. But I had the instinct for it, and my instinct registered it immediately. T was talking. I was watching the man. He passed our car close enough that I could see his face clearly through the passenger window. I want to describe his face accurately, and I find that after 53 years the accuracy I have is impressionistic rather than precise. I can tell you the feeling of the face more than the specific features. He was not young and not old. He was unremarkable in the way that certain people are unremarkable by design rather than by nature, dressed ordinarily, built ordinarily, a face that would not linger in memory under normal circumstances. The kind of person you would not look at twice. He looked at me. Not a glance. Not the brief eye contact of 2 people registering each other's presence in a shared space. He turned his head and looked at me directly and fully, and with a quality of attention that I felt before I understood it, the way you feel a drop in temperature before you consciously register the cold. He looked at me for what could not have been more than 3 or 4 seconds, and then he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not the reflexive acknowledgement smile of a stranger caught looking. A smile that said something I did not have words for at 19, and that I have spent 53 years finding words for, and the closest I have come is this. The smile of a person who has just made a decision and found it satisfactory. Then he looked away and kept walking and was gone. I told T that man gave me the creeps. T looked up, and the man was already past, and T said, "What man?" and I said, "Never mind," and we stayed another 20 minutes and drove home, and I did not think about the man again until the next morning when I heard the news. I'm not going to describe what had happened in that parking lot. If you are familiar with the cases from that period in Northern California, you may be able to make certain connections from the details I have provided, and I am asking you not to make those connections publicly in the comments, because I need this account to stay as vague as possible for reasons I hope will be clear by the end. What I will tell you is that something had happened to the people in one of the other cars in that lot. Something that was on the news for a long time afterward. Something that was never resolved. I was 19 years old and I had seen a man walking away from that area of the lot, and he had looked at me and smiled, and I did not tell anyone. I want to explain why I did not tell anyone, because it is the thing I have lived with longest and the thing I have the most complicated feelings about. I did not tell anyone because I was 19 years old and I was afraid, and I told myself I had not seen anything useful. I could not describe the man with any precision. I had not seen anything happen. I had only seen a man walking and looking and smiling, and none of those things are crimes. I told myself the police would not find my account useful. I told myself I would be making a very large thing out of a feeling. I have told myself these things for 53 years. I got older. I moved away. I married and had children and taught 4th grade and grew a garden and built the ordinary life I mentioned, and I carried the memory the way you carry something you have decided not to put down, always present, weight so familiar you stop noticing it, occasionally shifting in your grip to remind you it is there. T and I lost touch eventually. I never told him what I had seen. I never told my husband, who died 11 years ago. I never told my children. I told no one, and I became someone who had told no one for so long that telling someone began to feel impossible, like a room you have kept locked for so long that you have forgotten there is a door. 3 months ago someone reminded me there is a door. The first letter arrived on a Monday. Standard white envelope, my name and address handwritten on the front in neat block capitals. No return address. I received it without suspicion. I receive letters. I am 71. Letters are not unusual. I opened it at my kitchen table with my morning coffee. Inside was a photograph. A photograph of me, taken from outside my house. I could tell from the angle in the background, the corner of my front garden visible on the left side, the street behind me. I was in the photograph walking from my car to my front door, my back to the camera, taken from across the street. I was wearing the blue cardigan I had worn the previous Thursday. I had not been aware of anyone watching me. On the back of the photograph, in the same neat block capitals, "Still in California." I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Then I told myself there was a rational explanation. A neighbor's security camera capturing me by accident, and then, what, someone printing it and mailing it to me. The explanation collapsed before I finished constructing it. I put the photograph in a kitchen drawer and spent a week telling myself it was an anomaly, a mistake, something I did not need to escalate. The second letter arrived 8 days later. Another photograph. This one taken from closer, from my driveway, I think, or just outside it. Me in my garden in the morning, kneeling by the flower bed I have been replanting since spring. In the photograph, my back is to the camera, and my head is slightly turned as though I heard something and am about to look around. I do not remember hearing anything that morning. I do not remember almost turning around. On the back, you never said anything. I sat with that for a long time. Those 4 words and what they implied, that whoever had sent this knew I had been there, knew I had seen something, knew I had stayed silent, sat in my chest like something with weight and temperature. I called my daughter. I got as far as I've been receiving some strange mail, and then I heard myself and thought about what came next, the part where I explained what the letters were referring to, the 53 years of silence I would have to account for, the look on her face when she understood what her mother had carried and never shared. And I said junk mail. Never mind, and changed the subject and hung up and sat in my kitchen alone with the 2 photographs and the weight and temperature. The 3rd letter had 3 photographs. The 4th had 5. They kept coming every 8 to 12 days, always photographs, always of me, always taken from outside my home without my knowledge. Me at the mailbox, me getting into my car, me at the kitchen window taken from outside, from the driveway, close enough that I can see my own expression in it, and my expression is the expression of someone who has no idea they are being watched. Each one with a message on the back. 53 years is a long time to keep a secret. I kept mine too. Do you still think about that night? I think about it. I think about you. The most recent letter arrived 4 days ago. 1 photograph. Me asleep in my chair in the living room, taken through the window, the lamp on, the curtains I had not thought to close. Me asleep and completely unaware, and the window right there, and whatever was holding the camera right there on the other side of it. On the back, in the same neat block capitals that I have been looking at for 3 months, and that I have become certain belong to the same hand that wrote other things in other times that I read about in the news for years afterward. I remember you too. I called the police this morning. I want to be honest about how that went. I am a 71-year-old woman telling an officer that I believe I am being stalked by someone connected to unsolved cases from 1968, that I withheld information at the time, that I have been receiving letters for 3 months, and that I am frightened. The officer was not unkind. He took a report. He said they would look into it. He said I should make sure my doors and windows were locked, and that I should call back if anything further happened. I locked my doors and windows. Something further is happening. It is 11:47 p.m. I have been sitting in my dark living room for 2 hours with the curtains drawn and the lights off, because I turned the lights off when I saw the shadow, and I have not turned them back on. At approximately 9:30, I looked out my front window, the one he photographed me through while I slept, and there was a figure at the edge of my front yard, standing at the property line, which is marked by a low hedge that I planted 12 years ago, standing very still, facing the house. I called the police again. They said they would send someone when they could. That was 2 hours ago. I am not a dramatic person. I am a retired schoolteacher who grows vegetables and reads gardening forums on Reddit, and has lived quietly and carefully for 53 years specifically to avoid this moment. And this moment has arrived anyway, and I am sitting in the dark writing this on my phone because I do not know what else to do, and I need someone to know. I need someone to know that I was there, that I saw him, that he looked at me and smiled in the way he smiled, and that I was 19 years old and I was afraid, and I said nothing, and I have said nothing for 53 years, and he has been patient for 53 years in the way that certain people are patient. And now, he is standing at the edge of my garden at 11:47 at night, and I do not know what patience that long leads to. I need someone to know that his smile tonight, and I can see it from here, in the ambient light from the street lamp. The figure is still there, and I can see the face, and I can see the smile is the same smile I saw in that parking lot above the lake in the summer of 1968. Some smiles do not change. Some decisions last a very long time.